Hello. Hello to this BoF. This is the Python BoF. I'm Pollo. I'll be facilitating this BoF. As I said before, kind of a reminder, there are microphones. People on stream won't hear you if you're not using the microphones. It's very important. If there are people remotely that are attending, that have any questions, please join in the DebConf Pado room. You can even ping me. I'll be happy to relay them to the room. We have an agenda. The agenda can be found in the link here is 31 Python BoF, but you can find it in the schedule too. There's an Etherpad link. So people have been adding their names here, and we have an agenda. So let's start with item number 1, migration to Python 3.12 retrospective. Graham wrote that part. So maybe, Graham, you want to start?
So this...
What?
Am I supposed to stand up?
No,
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this was actually an answer to one of Doko's points in the second item, but one of the main reasons this transition took so long was because we did the time T transition in between, which really stretched things out. And we'd already filed all these failure to build from source bugs and auto package test bugs. Sorry. We had already filed a lot of the failure to build from source and auto package test failure bugs. And it didn't help that we filed them early. A lot of people thought they fixed the bugs, closed they didn't upload and they didn't see any problems. They closed the bugs as fixed. But when the next phase of the transition started, then these problems reappeared.
So we're expecting 3.13
Please use the microphone, yeah?
So we're expecting a much faster transition for 3.13? You got anything else that's nice and complicated that's lined up to clash with it?
Well, we're hoping 3.13 will be faster.
Well, I think it depends how much time you spend to prepare for that. And I mean, in the next topic, I raised some stuff that we didn't address, but yeah, we have to have people to check for that as well. And I mean, if somebody volunteers doing that better for the next transition, then do you?
I can volunteer some work on it. It's a big commitment to make.
I think the problem of these transitions in Python Team is a little bit caused by the fact that people maintain their own packages where they are listed as uploaders but don't watch the wider view. So what I'm doing in the Debian Me team, what I also did in the Python team, because I realized nobody's doing it, I opened the list of all bugs of the team, use the team address in bugs, and then start browsing the list, what bug can I fix? And this is somehow unusual, or it seems unusual to me, because I haven't seen anybody doing the same thing, to have the team scope in mind instead of these are my packages, I fix them or not. What do you think? It is true or not?
Somewhere in the middle. I've done some of that before. Some other people have too. But in general, I'd say the mindset is more personal, as you describe. Yeah.
And also, during the pandemic, we did a bunch of those. We organized remote Python BoFs, and those worked pretty well at closing a bunch of bugs in different packages. We set some goals, and I think we managed to do some work towards better QA like this. I think remote sprints can happen. It takes a little bit of work to coordinate them. It takes a bit of money too if you want to pay for food, for example. If we do it for 2 days and people can then invoice their local TI. I think it was nice. I think it worked well. I think we should do maybe more if people are interested in that. I think it's a good way to foster this team effort in general in the team.
So, yes, there are some challenges within the Python modules team. And I think, I'm not sure how these are different than the packages maintained outside of the Python team. I mean, you still have to remember we have about 3,500 or 4,000 packages which are affected by a Python transition. And I mean, some packages are maintained by other teams like Debian Med, Debian Science, but we also have a lot of bindings that are maintained by completely different maintainers. So, the Python stuff is much different than the Perl stuff, where you have mostly everything maintained within a team. But I don't think you can compare that, and that's also a challenge doing that transition.
I'd like to answer this because I thought that nearly all Python 3.12 bugs in Debian Med and were fixed, and now I started wondering what next. And so I went to the Python team. Maybe not all things were fixed, but I think you say you are doing sprints. Sprints is okay, but if I have assume I have a boring video conference and like to do something in parallel. So I go for the bugs, and you find low-hanging fruits which are perfectly able to do in parallel because just some random things. And nobody's doing it, in my opinion. Or at least I found so many low-hanging fruit that I thought nobody did it before.
We talked about sprints. Should we make a commitment to do some?
I added an item remote sprint here. We can talk about this later.
Should we be doing even more than sprints? Should we have like a day of the week that we try and hack on some Python stuff as a team? Does anyone on the team want to do something like that?
I think the Perl teams did something similar, where they had a low-hanging fruit meeting like every 2 weeks or something on IRC. Sometimes there was one person showing up, sometimes a few, and it kept the momentum going to fix issues. So maybe it would be worth trying something like that.
Does someone want to organize the first one of these?
Emmanuel Arias from Argentina did try to have IRC meetings, and I think nobody showed up. So
I seem to remember it was scheduled at a time that was hard for me,
so
and I'm sure
we can always poke him again and see if he's open to organizing these. I think that would be a good idea. No. Maybe we can move on to item number 1. Again, default Python version for Trixie, migration to 3.13. I think we're there in the discussion. We can talk about sprints and other things maybe later, but we have quite the agenda and time is running out. So let's move on. Doko wrote that, so go ahead.
So so this cycle for Python 3.12, even before we were stopped by the time T 64-bit stuff, I think it was end of January when we finished to add Python 3.12 as supported, something like that. And so that was a little bit late. If you compare that to Python 3.10 2 years ago, we already started with making 3.10 the default during the Christmas break. So we were 1 month earlier. Now, there were some problems like I think the biggest issue which I underestimated was the removal of distributors. And Of course, that would have been better to scan the archive and file bugs before. So that could be done, well, yes, by scanning the source code for import distutils, or from distutils import something, and then file bug quite in advance.
So those were filed in advance, and those are bugs that I'm talking about, where people closed them, but they didn't actually fix the problem. And then when the package was finally removed, then they showed up.
So they fixed the first occurrence of the problem, but not everything. And because it's difficult to check that for yourself, because if you have a package which needs 20 dependencies, which is not uncommon in Python, you need to build everything up first. But yeah, so it's not that you can just check for a new Python version with a simple test rebuild. You have to do a staged test rebuild. And that's usually, or at least that's how currently Graham is checking that, and I was checking before by doing a PPA build. First, upload all packages which are marked for stage 1, build them, then do the same thing for stage 2, then for 3, then for 4, and then maybe check that NumPy is usable with a new Python version. So the problem with this approach is it's happening while the archive is active. So you have to check that your packages are up to date. You have to keep your PPA up to date, which is a manual task, not an automatic task. And on top of that, we don't have anything like that in Debian yet. And so it's a bit difficult to share that work, or to work together on a common test repository. Right. So for I linked one tab for Python 3.13. So there's another list of removed modules. I think they are not very commonly used, but so that's something that could be done in advance by scanning the source code of the packages of the Debian archive.
As I said, as I just wrote, I'm pretty sure that I wrote a linting tag that flags all of these, and we could just search by this.
Say again?
I think I wrote a LinkedIn tag that searches for all the PEP 594 remove modules and advertises those, saying, "Oh, please, it's deprecated in this Python version," etc., etc. I don't want to mess up the screen, but if somebody wants to look that up, and in theory, it's much easier than to file bugs, because you can just go through.
Yeah, I think that would help. Yes.
Do we have someone who supports the Lintian team to implement this?
It's done.
Ah, okay.
I did it. I did it a while ago.
Right, and 3.13 ships with 2 experimental features. So one is just-in-time compilation, and the other one is no GIL. So GIL is the global interpreter log in Python, and but you need to enable or disable something. And I think that we will need some more time until third-party packages are updated to use that, and would just recommend to ignore that experimental feature for 3.13 at all.
So you're not going to build a no-GIL version, even an experimental one that things aren't built against?
So I haven't looked at that, how compatible that is. I mean, if we can use the existing stuff, or all these third-party packages, the same third-party packages. Yes, but if we need another set of extensions for no-GIL, then we can't do it. And having Python extensions for GIL and for no-GIL, I think that's something we don't want to commit. So the other thing is, so we were just talking about Debian internal things. The other thing is how ready are upstreams. And usually, I mean, it takes up to 6-8 months until the last upstream releases support for new Python versions. And for some leaf packages, so upstream isn't checking that at all. And we cannot patch everything. So we are not upstream developers for the most cases. So that means, for example, we cannot just start now to make Python 3.13 a supported Python version, because we will stop at some point, and then we'll block the archive. So we have to wait, and usually we wait until, well, a week or two after the release, and then it will become very busy.
I was actually just going to comment that as of PyCon earlier this year, my understanding was the no-GIL is there for experimentation, but it is nowhere near instrument ready at this point.
Yeah, you got that? I imagine it to be, I'm not hearing it myself on the speakers. I don't think you do have that. I assume it would be useful for us to have a no-GIL version at some point, even if we're not building things for it. I mean...
Useful in what way? Please repeat the question.
As a Python developer using Debian, I would like to be able to install the no-GIL version of my Python on my laptop at some point. I imagine many other people would too.
Okay, could the two versions of the interpreter be built somehow?
Absolutely.
And then we could still say that the no-GIL one is not the normal one? I don't know.
So the problem I see here is that then, so my guess is that we will not be able to build everything for no-GIL.
We probably can't build anything for no-GIL.
Well, yes, but then why should we ship it? Or why should we ship some extensions for GIL and no-GIL? Because then people are complaining, well, you ship it, that works and that doesn't work. So we don't have the full stack working, and you have to find out yourself what's working with GIL and what's working with no-GIL. So we have a tight time frame, and that's why I think we should limit ourselves to just update to 3.13. So that's okay. my thinking. But if others want to commit for GIL, that's fine with me.
For Bookworm, we really wanted to have 3.11 because it had speed improvement. What will we gain by having 3.13? Do we know already?
The current stable version?
Well,
Please, microphone here.
Look at tab 594. So that's the tab which describes what's new in, or look at what's new in Python 3.13.
I had a look and there was not much though.
No? Okay.
No, I think the last deprecated stdlib modules were in 3.11.
Yes, this one should be relatively painless in that sense.
Okay, so that PEP is just about removing. So maybe
yeah.
Google for what's new in Python 3.13.
Somebody else can do that and give me a link. I don't
Oh,
want
there's
to
a
keep the
what's
schedule.
new page.
Did you want to add something?
This is additional one.
I guess I was just going to say, I mean, parts of the standard lib aren't thread safe anyway, even if you're using with the GIL. So I wouldn't expect that you would want to build everything to be no GIL. I don't even know that that's possible.
At some point it might be, but definitely not for now.
Yeah.
On that topic, Python upstream is now using a new site packages directory for no-GIL. Yeah. Maybe that will change in future, but I don't think that's a direction we will want to take when we get there. I assume we will be doing everything in the same site packages directory. But it's not a good omen for Python developers supporting GIL and no-GIL at the same time.
Is there anything else we want to mention about 3.13? Anything else in the discussion? Or else we can go ahead.
So,
We have about 30 minutes left for the meeting.
So I don't have anything more for that point.
So another point that's in the agenda here, address invalid escape warnings for all packages, scan build logs. Example, the bug 10.76.0.64. Again, I think Doko, you wrote that.
Yeah, so, I mean, that already pops up in auto package tests because these currently these are mostly warnings and these are emitted on standard error. And so they cause auto package test failures if you don't have the allow standard error flag set for the auto package test. So that would be another thing, a proactive thing to do to scan source codes and file bug reports for all these packages. Yeah.
So as far as I understand, these warnings are emitted at byte compile time as well.
Yes.
So we get them at install time. And so Pew parts should be able to check the logs. And then we can find a bunch of bugs for this.
Well, we don't install everything in packages, so you are missing all the the package tests, for example. And when you use them, then well, you get those. So you only see a subset.
Again, if it's something that can be actually checked in the source code without building, I'm happy to work on some linting tags that can actually work on that. I have a point later for that, but linting has been somewhat hard to maintain recently. Some people have put some work in, but we're still looking for a general maintainer for linting, so it's really hard to get some merge requests in. So I try not to have 15 of them at the same time, because it takes a lot of time to do that. So I can't guarantee anything, but if you give me clear things that you want to see, I'm happy to try to work on it.
Yeah, I think best thing to look at would be the what's new documents.
Yeah.
And
anything else on point number 2 here? Can go down. 3 was cross-building third-party packages. Again, another bug number here. I can open it maybe. I think, yeah, you wrote that too, Doko.
yeah, well, that. So currently, I think cross-building just avoids problems by having a no Python profile, something like that. But there is support to cross-build extensions. The question is, well, do we want to adapt that? The setup, years ago I did the split of the Python interpreter from all the library stuff. And the idea is that you have the Python interpreter for the build architecture and the dev packages for the host architecture. And then pretending or telling the Python interpreter that he's working on the host and not the build. So that works for some extensions, but apparently not for everything. And so if somebody is interested, we should document how to do that within Debian to cross-build Python extensions. But for me, that's some low priority stuff. There's no reaction, so it seems to be very low priority.
I know that Edmund Gohn has been working a lot on third-party, or on cross-building things in the archive.
Helmut.
Yeah, but not on Python stuff.
Yes.
As I said, so it's the no Python profile penalty.
Right, let's move to the next item on the list. I wrote that one. So I've been thinking about that since the pandemic. I think it would be nice to have it clear in the team's policy that we at least should be running upstream tests, if not must. I think running tests at build and a package test is a good thing. It should be done. Helps us catch a lot of bugs, especially during transitions. So I would be in favor of adding a must plus if you really can't because something's breaking and it's really, really hard, or you don't want to package 75 libs for some weird test, please document why you haven't done so. But I think in general, we should be modifying the team's policy to require that, and maybe eventually opening bugs on packages that don't to improve QA work. Stefano's doing a thumbs up. I don't know if there's people that think it's a bad idea. We shouldn't be doing that, or
That's a no-brainer in Debian packaging these days. If you have tests, run them.
I agree.
So can we enforce that for Python packages which are not maintained by the Python team?
There's a point on the agenda later where we will be automatically enforcing this in some cases unless we do something.
So about writing tests, I had some experience when I needed to look for help, and I think in some cases I didn't actually find how to run these tests at the build time. For example, you have a PyTest plugin and you need to wrap something in something, and it's either very complicated and you cannot just do this by yourself. You need to ask on IRC, for example, and sometimes maybe it's not supported to, for example, even the upstream runs it in some environment which is not translatable to our environment. Like, it's possible in general to run it because the upstream in general runs it in the CI, but it's not maybe possible at all for us.
So that's why I think that would be a good example of you've tried, it's really hard, and you write something in the Debian/source, and you say, oh, I've tried a lot, it's really, really hard. For this reason, tests are not enabled in this package. I think that's absolutely fine, and that's like an exception. But in general, we must, like,
okay.
Yeah. So, and it could even be a bug on your package, so other people would actually see it and without having it removed from the archive. Just So if everybody's all right, so I'll write something. I'll create a merge request on policy. I'll send it to the list because this is what we've decided how to modify the policy, and I'll follow up on that. I've talked a little bit about requests for linting tags. I will look at what's new in 3.13. I will also update the code I wrote for PEP 594. Apparently I missed the new updates on that. I don't know if there's anybody else that wants to see something. As I said, it's a best effort. We have 15 minutes left. It's a best effort. I think I'm the only one really working on Lincoln tags for the Python team. But if you have great ideas, you can always reach out to me. I'll be happy to work on it on a best effort basis. Decision making in a team. Again, Andreas wrote that. It's the same color.
Yes, decision making the team was for me a problem because I thought there is some flaw in the policy, which was a maintainer, uploader thingy in two ways. And I suggested to change the policy. There was some discussion around the policy. But what is the way to say, now we edit the policy and decide that this is a new policy which we want to apply for the team from now?
In this case, it was kind of a fait accompli because the people who... I've got a mic.
Closer.
The people who didn't want to do this left the team before we even said we'd made the decision.
Yeah, anyway, but there is no procedure to say, from now on, this is a policy we want to work together, despite of this special case.
There is. I mean, we have a section in the policy that says updating the policy, which documents how to do it. So
there's a Python policy, and then there's a Python team policy.
this is the team's policy. Yeah.
Exactly. And so the Python policy that is about how we should package Python. So that is maintained in the Python 3 defaults package. And so the current approach to change that is to send an email to Debian Python, maybe with a bug report, propose the change, and then implement the change. But so the team policy is, where is it maintained? I don't know.
In a Salsa repo, and we typically do merge requests and discuss it on the list. And IRC, I guess.
Maybe I missed this, or this was later done.
It's been there for a while.
Okay, then forget my point. Sorry.
No problem. All right.
But in that situation, the people left before the decision was made. They saw the writing on the wall, and
This was a special thing.
yeah.
I hope that it remains special.
Future work. 7.1, migrate to PyBuild plugin PyProject for everything.
So I added all of these. There are some tasks here. These are kind of DH Python things. I think in general we can default to using the PyProject, the build plugin, rather than calling setup.py for most packages, and I think it'll work, but we need to do a pretty big archive rebuild to test that. Then there's Poyo's new feature for catching, was that 3.13 that it added? Oh, you wanted, yeah. So at the moment in unit tests, if your package never runs any tests, it just happily passes the build. Maybe the tests weren't there. Maybe there were no tests. Maybe the tests were there and they weren't run because you got something wrong. Either way, but you don't know. So now there's a feature to detect this. We've disabled that feature because if we enabled it, a whole bunch of packages would fail to build. We need to do an archive rebuild and file bugs and get people to fix their packages.
So
this was your
Yes.
feature. Are
Yes.
you interested in doing some rebuilding and bug filing?
I can do the bug filing, but I won't do the rebuilding part. If you give me a list, I'll be happy to mass bug file report.
I'm happy to throw a bunch of packages at the debian.debian.net to build them, and
If you give me a list of packages failing with the clear thing, I'll happily do a bunch of bug reporting on that.
I maintain a lot of packages who don't have PyProject.toml, and a lot of them
They
will
don't need
never have it.
they don't need it.
Okay, but then why plugin PyProject?
so that we're building all the Python things the same, so that the default way to build a Python module is the recommended way, rather than the recommended way being a non-default.
Okay. So something that uses setup tools will continue to work?
Yes.
Okay.
So I would like to well, I'm still a bit concerned about the time we have for 3.13, and so if these bugs are filed now and fixed now, that's fine. I wouldn't want to have to make that a requirement.
The transition is more important.
Yes, and I mean, yeah. So maybe we can do well another test rebuild then during the freeze, which we don't fix for the release anymore. But then we are ready to fix those after the freeze, after the next Debian release.
We do the test rebuilds. We see how many packages are affected.
Right,
We file them at a
exactly.
low severity, and yeah.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
So will we have a PyBuild plugin PyProject become a dependency of the HPython? So that we don't need to depend on
That would
it?
be the proposal there, that it becomes the default.
Okay.
Depending on that and setup tools, or drop the dependency on setup tools.
Yeah. Gets tricky, doesn't it?
What about alternative Python implementations, Stefan?
I have this in the Python BoF every year. It comes back to the same thing Doko was saying earlier of how much do we want to build C extensions for other shit. PyPy is an example of other shit. We don't build any C extensions. Last year we proposed should we try and build some PyPy extensions for NumPy, and we agreed that would be a good idea, and I filed a bug saying I will help make this happen, can we make NumPy a good example? And I was told no. But no, the package has a new maintainer, so we can try again.
Great. We have about 5 minutes left, a little bit more than 5 minutes. What about release goals for Trixie?
Yeah, was coming from my side, yes. Sometimes I'm missing a little bit of a target line, a goal, and a typical target line is the release of a next stable release. I've done in the spring somehow the Flask migration, and I can remember the last was the SQL migration, where Thomas, you were heavily involved with your OpenStack packages, and Andreas was talking about other teams like the Met teams. I mean, there's not only the Python team, but I sometimes, if I have time, I'm looking for something that I can useful do with my time somehow. So it would be good to have some idea of, no matter what and where, what would be some kind of a release goal for the Python team somehow. Means which packages would somebody see as a goal in the next release somehow, but needs help from other parts. Like I have seen lastly some packages that are maintained within the Met team, but I'm depending on some packages on them for the test or whatever. So what's it, more or less a general question. What about some general ideas to getting some goals set as this is what we want to have at least for the next release?
So, sorry. I mean, Python now has for the last 2 or 3 years a 1-year release cycle. And so, I mean, it's not rocket science that we are trying to do the very same every 2 years, or for Python the very same every year, because well, the odd number of years are Ubuntu releases as well, and so just do every Python transition. So we can document that at some place, and I mean it's the same thing for, well, GCC transitions. So you can just document reoccurring changes somewhere. Well, maybe on some release team page, so that people are not surprised by every new Python transition or by every new Perl transition or something like that.
No, that's not what I mean. That's fully true what you say. We have some standard tools all over in the FOSS world, but are regularly getting new versions. I mean, generally depending our Python packages, not with Python itself or like NumPy or whatever it needs. And currently it's not a Python package, I have a JavaScript package where I say, some friend asked me, I would like to use this package, but it's again quite old in Debian. And I say, yeah, that would be a good thing. It should be new, but yeah, at least somebody needs to do the work. And I've in the past also some Python package where I say, oh, would be nice to have, but in the end it ended up, oh, it's much work for me. But something like this, someone coming up with it would be a good idea to see this. I see what Edward is currently with home automation thing is doing, similar to something like this. This is what I mean with a rescope, where everybody, yeah, this is something we want to have in the next release.
What I wanted to say about the packages, say in MedTeam or Science Team, it was 3 or 4 years ago when Sandro Tossi asked explicitly, could you please move this package to the Python team? It was right before Christmas, and at New Year's Eve, everything he requested was in the Python team. So I'm very open to give away any package someone else wants to do. We are very quick in this. The advantage is that competent people might work on it. The disadvantage is what I said before, that there is no culture in touching other uploaders' packages. And in the Debian Med team, I have my Sentinel to update everything. I don't put up this Sentinel in the Python team. So my packages where I'm uploader become more outdated if they are on the Python team because I'm not watching this so closely. So I like to hand over stuff if there is some common sense on this. And I also would think we should actively ask people, maintainers who are maintaining Python packages outside the team to join the team. We had now 2 people who left the team, but maybe these are special cases. But I could imagine that other maintainers are happy with joining the Python team. So we should maybe ask them, which is what I made with everything we had in the Debian Med team, collect everything into one team to have access to these packages and to do some wide-scale changes in one rush. This is the idea behind this.
Just to be clear, we have about 2-3 minutes left.
I just would like to say one thing. I agree with you. It's nice to have the latest shiny new thing. Though I appreciate a lot when people like Piotr, for example, with SQL Alchemy, do a careful approach to experimental, look at the excuse page, and make sure that it doesn't break anything. Because it happened to me many, many, many times, and that's one of the reasons why I'm not putting things too much in the Python team. Keep them in the OpenStack namespace, because otherwise people may make a mistake and upload a new version that breaks everything. Okay.
Stefano, do you want to? Oh.
What about if you put the OpenStack stuff into subdirectory in the Python team space?
That poses another problem that I don't want to use precintar.
And you can't catch these regressions with auto package tests that block migration.
Yes, that's what I was referring to. When people upload to experimental, and then we can look at the excuse page and make sure there's no regression thanks to auto package tests.
Yeah,
so I was reminding everyone that it should be the normal workflow for every new things that have a lot of dependencies.
Every new major upstream version of...
For example, I don't know, a Falcon, I have that in mind, or Werkzeug, these type of things.
So we're about out of time. I don't think we have time to talk about number 10, but as always, if you want to keep chatting, we have about 15 minutes before the other talk.
So, I mean, the good thing is that the Python BoF was now not on the last day like last year. So we have time to meet again. And yeah, I would suggest we just pick up a free slot. It doesn't have to be a video room and then continue discussing.
Yes. Well, thanks a lot for coming. Thanks for working on all these. I think we have a great meeting, and see you next year.